Let's talk about exercise. Movement is life, but what is the best type of exercise and how much? It's a question I get asked a lot, and the ultimate goal of health is longevity. So a lot of women I work with are high performers, they're type A, driven, and often former cardio queens. And yes, cardio will improve your fitness, but an often overlooked contributor is strength training and flexibility. Now, by adding both of these into our routine consistently, we can age gracefully with strong bones and muscles, and I know that's what we all want. So you should aim for about at least twice a week because deterioration of muscle starts earlier than you might think. Most muscle fiber is lost between the ages of 40 and 50, but it's essential to start preservation far earlier than that. However, it's never too late. Now, the hormone testosterone is what helps with maintenance and growth, and unfortunately, after age 30, testosterone levels start to drop. So incorporating weights into your lifestyle is more important than ever. It's pretty much a non-negotiable in my opinion. Flexibility then, on the other hand, helps us to maintain that functional movement and balance as we age. So if you're new to strength training, keep it simple. Start with body weight squats. Squats can work a really wide range of muscles, including some of the largest, most metabolically active muscles in the body. And that is what's going to generate more ATP energy and also pull glucose out of our bloodstream into those large muscle groups. The larger the muscle group you work, the greater the hit of testosterone. And that's an important thing too. So as I mentioned, a lot of women are used to doing a high amount of cardio, but the opposite end of the spectrum really is being sedentary. And so we have to find that sweet spot. It varies for each person. There tends to be a tipping point when it comes to a culmination of mental, emotional, physical stressors. And for each of us, that tipping point's a little bit different. Now, hormetic stressors, things like exercise, sauna, fasting, cold plunges, they have some incredible benefits. But if your adrenals are already a little stressed out, this can really tip them over the edge and make weight loss even more difficult. So when you start to notice weight creeping on, despite not changing anything, a lot of women are wrongly told just exercise more and eat less. But eventually, over-exercising or over-fasting or any of those extremes is going to flood our bodies with chronic cortisol stress hormones that backfire, not only deterring your weight loss, but actually driving up the blood sugar, cravings, and weight. So exercise should make you feel energized. It should leave you feeling better and not require a couple days to recover, as I often see in some of my female patients dealing with hormone imbalances, adrenal imbalances, or autoimmune disease. So just start out really by finding an activity that brings you joy, because at the end of the day, that's what you'll actually stick with. And then find your sweet spot when it comes to how long feels good and sustainable. When there's other health issues going on, 20 to 30 minutes is usually a great goal for most women. Some people need to start closer to 5 minutes and work their way up. I love the idea of taking exercise snack breaks throughout the day too. I mean, when you have a demanding schedule, young kids at home, a full workout at the gym can seem like a pipe dream. So we can easily build in a short walk after lunch or dinner to bring down a blood sugar spike, park at the back of the parking lot, do some yoga stretches or some calf raises behind your desk, or do a concept called habit stacking. There's a doctor I work with who actually sets a kettlebell in his kitchen behind the coffee maker. And it's this visual cue. His wife hates it, but it's like a visual cue for him to do a 5-minute kettlebell workout while the coffee is brewing in his pajamas, so there's no excuse. And it's really that consistency of knowing that he exercises daily. He builds self-trust, because so many times we make these big commitments and then break our promises to ourselves with lofty goals we can't stick with long term. So sometimes he just works out for 5 minutes a day, but other times he has time to do more. But it's really those consistent daily habits that win out in the long run. Dr. Stacy Sims is someone who talks about women and resistance training, and from a longevity standpoint and body composition standpoint, it is critical. Now, before I get into exercise further, though, I think it goes hand in hand with the conversation about protein and overall calorie consumption. So many women make the mistake of not eating enough calories, either intentionally or just because they're busy or maybe they don't have much of an appetite. Either way, be sure you're not under consuming calories, because if you're eating less than around 1,300 to 1,600 calories, this can actually trigger the release of cortisol, those stress hormones we talked about that drive up blood sugar and also break down your muscles. Now, if you're in a calorie deficit, it is especially critical to increase your protein consumption to avoid breakdown of lean muscle tissue, which that's what supports weight loss, blood sugar, and also the body composition you're looking for. So this is actually one of the reasons that weight loss drugs cause the number on the scale to go down, but the weight gain back afterwards is primarily fat because you've lost muscle. And the muscle is what's going to give you a really nice shape, keep your blood sugar and insulin levels healthy, increase your metabolism, and really just make sure that you have strong, healthy bones for life. So that's not the goal if you're looking at long-term health and metabolic fitness. So muscle maintenance, or it's really never too late, even post-menopause. So during perimenopause, around age 35 to 40 and beyond, we start to get into more of a sympathetic fight or flight mode due to less progesterone coming on board than we used to. And along with that comes an increase in those cortisol stress hormones. So we actually have a higher baseline. So if you want to do CrossFit or go to HIIT or something and you're not progressing, maybe you're feeling just more tired and wired, you don't necessarily need to quit. Maybe it's just not polarizing enough to create the response you want. So according to Dr. Stacy Sims, who I mentioned is a leading researcher on the best ways to exercise and intermittent fast specifically for women, which is surprisingly rare. You'd be kind of shocked. Most studies are actually done on men. And as she says, women are not small men. Our cyclical hormone levels are different, and we are far more sensitive to stress hormones, and that causes us to respond differently to the same interventions. Now, she recommends exercising 3 times a week for a total of about 45 to 60 minutes and using a combination of weights and cardio. But you can certainly break it up into 20-minute workouts more frequently. And I'll give you a few examples. So when you're thinking about the best exercise for women, especially over 35 to 40, to promote healthy weight, body composition, improve your energy, and just overall longevity, you need to incorporate some heavy resistance training to create that muscle adaptation. Plus, it helps with bone and blood sugar, as I mentioned. But from a cardiovascular standpoint, we need to look at having really high intensity. I'm not talking like moderate intensity 45-minute boot camp or spin class, but we want it more at the 85 to 90% max range for maybe 1 to 2 minutes with adequate recovery for about 4 to 5 sets. But especially we want to look at that super maximum sprint interval training where you're doing like 100% all out effort for less than 60 seconds. Because if you're doing that top end, which is really hard, you have this follow through of testosterone and growth hormone responses, as well as a flood of antioxidants from that high intensity, which is exactly what our body needs when we're heading into perimenopause and menopause. So think intensity, not volume. That's a mindset shift for a lot of people. So when you're looking at improving body composition, sleep, metabolic function, all these things kind of start to go off the rails once we hit perimenopause. So especially late perimenopause. So this is really where you might want to drop the volume a little bit, and you're looking at more yoga and walks when adding in 2 longer sprint intervals and 2 to 3 heavier resistance training sessions each week. Now they're not long, maybe 20 to 25 minutes, focusing on total body movement. And then you can follow it up if you want with just a couple like 5 to 6 30-second sprints, and then you're done in less than 45 minutes. Had a couple of clients who've really enjoyed that shift and have had really good success. So hit it hard and then recover. So here's the weekly routine for perimenopause and menopause in terms of the best exercise. As a recap, 2 to 3 resistance training sessions, and you can start with body weight. That's perfectly fine. Use what you have. And then a maximum of 2 interval training sessions or 3 high interval training sessions. If you love endurance, go for long walks, go cycling, but just kind of think about it as not your soul food, or it's your soul food, but not your bread and butter anymore. And for non-athletes, perfectly fine to start where you are. Even you can put a kettlebell in a backpack for a little bit more resistance when you're walking or doing lunges. You could walk up the hill, and at the top of the hill, take out that kettlebell and do some sumo squats with the kettlebell. It's really just all about being interactive with your environment and using what you have, access to or what you have at home, and just not overcomplicating it. You don't have to go to the gym to do this. So I hope this gives you a few tips on where to start, and at least to start incorporating or upping the ante when it comes to your weights. But the other thing I would say is you do need to progressively challenge your muscles as you start to become stronger and more fit. So if you're already weightlifting, maybe instead of 8 to 12 circuits, you get better outcomes by increasing your resistance relative to you. And that's how you're going to increase lean muscle mass, which takes up less space, burns more calories, and gives you great shape. And I know that's what you're looking for. You're not going to bulk up. Another question I get often is zone 2 training, right? Like that slow, steady cardio to increase your mitochondria and metabolism. So the thing about that is women are actually born with more protein in our mitochondria for fatty acid metabolism. We're also born with the ability to naturally handle more oxidative stress. So what we're looking at in zone 2 training is really trying to increase mitochondrial and fat burning responses, but we already have that built in innately as a woman without spending hours and hours trying to increase that. So at the end of the day, nutrition and strength training are really the only thing that makes a massive difference when it comes to body composition, and especially visceral fat, belly fat. Also stress management, since we have 400% more cortisol receptors in our abdomen than anywhere else in the body. So when we're stressed, when we're going through perimenopause and menopause, we start to get fat storage there at a more higher rate, which is one of the reasons. So protein intake really enters into the conversation here too, because we become more anabolically resistant to building muscle as our hormones start to kind of change, and estrogen actually helps. It's anti-inflammatory, it helps with lean muscle development. And so heavy resistance training should be followed up by a good amount of protein to complement the stress that we're putting our bodies under and really get that response of the lean muscle development that we're looking for. And for most women, eating enough protein is really challenging. I mean, I guarantee if you're not intentionally prioritizing protein, you are not getting enough, and your body will actually start to break down the muscle you have as a response to stress, because it stores a lot of minerals that you need to support your adrenals. So start to look at about 1 gram per ideal pound of body weight as a goal, or at least aim for around 30 to 40 grams per meal and about 15 grams at each snack. So literature on aging tells us that women who eat more protein have better lean mass, better quality of life. And so protein just starts to become more important. Those branched chain amino acids, it kind of depends on, the top sources really depend on what you like to eat. If you're plant-based, that would be like legumes, seeds, pea protein. But so many women I work with have digestive issues. So getting enough from plant sources can be really difficult to digest and break down. And it causes a lot of bloating and inflammation in women. So if that's the case, or if you consume animal products, you do get a really wide range of bioavailable vitamins and protein there. Just look for grass-fed or wild-caught. In either case, make sure it's a high-quality source. But bottom line, get out there, move your body, do whatever brings you joy, walk more, especially in nature and with friends, and to multiply those benefits, and start lifting weights regularly if you aren't already. I'd love to hear from you. If you need a copy of the workout regimen that I recommended, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Sara Beth Barthel.